So I want to start with basically just some truth bombs. Okay, that's where we're going to start with it. So I want you to know that most narcissists will never be diagnosed. All right, it's a personality disorder. Um, it's supposed to be diagnosed, but they're never going to get diagnosed. And it's up to us to know the red flags, call it for what it is, and do what we have to do to protect ourselves. Now, why won't they be diagnosed? Any guesses as to why they won't be diagnosed? Any
They
guesses?
they think they're fine.
They think they're fine. Exactly. They think there's nothing wrong with them. Um, in order to be diagnosed, you have to go to a psychiatrist or a doctor who can assess you. But narcs thinks there's nothing wrong with them. They're the king of the world. They're the best. They're God's gift to the planet. So why would they go to a psych? When they do, it's because they're either A court ordered, or B, they're trying to prove to you that there's nothing wrong. So if they get to a psychiatrist or a doctor, therapist, whatever, they play the part of a normal person and they don't get the diagnosis. This is how they operate. They put on a mask and they tell the doctor whatever it is that they want to hear so that they don't get that diagnosis. So type bingo if you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say they put on a mask. They know what to say. They can act completely normal in front of everybody else, but then when they close the door, they're a completely different person. So that would be a mask that they're putting on. So you can see it's not just your narc. This is a thing. This is a real thing that they do. And I basically always said that it's like they're part of a secret society where it's almost like they have this code book, this handbook of exactly what to do with the instructions of how to act, things to say. This is what you do when you're a narcissist, and they all do the same things. It's unreal how much they do the same things. I seriously think it's a secret society. So I want you to see if you resonate with any of these things. So who has heard I'm the king of this castle? Or what about like, I can't believe you'd say that about me. That's not who I am. Or um, it's your fault I'm like this. This is your fault. You did this. Or if you leave me, I'll kill myself. Or um, if you leave, I'll ruin your life. They don't care about you like I do, or no one else would ever want you. You're used goods. You're a whore. You need to respect me. You're being too sensitive. You're being totally irrational. It's not that bad. Um, when have you ever felt unsafe around me? Like acting like it's no big deal. Or have I ever hit you? Or that never happened. You're remembering that wrong. Exactly. Like that's not what happened. When you
Mhm.
know good and damn well that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
Um, so you can see kind of what's going on here. These are all very common things that they all say, and they're after power and control. They use manipulation and coercion to get it. And so that comes out in the form of gaslighting, blame
Guess.
shifting,
Yep.
rewriting history,
Yep.
crazy making, crossing boundaries, intimidation, basically anything that they can do to belittle you and increase themselves. So type me if you can resonate with any of that. That makes sense if you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm looking over here because this is where you are. I've got two screens, so I'm sorry. um, uh, so okay, we've established that they're all the same when in terms of motive and what they're after. So let's talk about the cycle. All right. Yeah, exactly. Me too. With the rewriting history, it's insane. And you get to the point where it's like you start questioning, like, well, is is that what happened? Like you really start questioning your own sanity and your own memory. So you don't even trust yourself. So you have to
Yep.
trust them because you can't trust anything that you remember because,
Mhm.
well, obviously it's wrong. So and it happens so often
Mhm.
that then honestly, I think my memory was ruined because of that. I think now I genuinely can't remember things because of that. Honestly, I think my short-term memory was damaged. So here's what happens when you first meet these people. uh, they do this thing called love bomb, and that's where they suck you in.
Yep.
And this is kind of like the it's too good to be true kind of phase. Like really, this is too good to be true. He's too perfect. Like we are perfect. We are perfect. And flowers, gifts, intense love making, just lots of emotion and passion, affection, extravagant trips. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Can you resonate with that? Okay, that's where they're sucking you in. All right.
Yep.
And then you're hooked, and then life just kind of goes back to normal and it's status quo. It stops and everything just kind of gets quiet. Nothing really. It's just life. We're here together. It's just life. But then this thing begins where you start to have this rise in tension and things just kind of feel off. Nothing's really happening. It's just things are just really tense. Maybe a little bit of tiffs and arguments. Like maybe you do something a little bit wrong and they get irritated real easy. Um, but you end up kind of walking on eggshells. Okay, this
Hmm.
and we're talking about the first time. So this is before it's ever even happened before. Like something in your spirit just kind of knows, okay, something's really weird right now.
Yep.
So and then there's the abusive attack or explosive tirade. And that's the first time. Totally catches you off guard and you're like, what just happened?
What
Either
just
it's either physical, emotional, financial. It could be so there are lots of different types of abuse: emotional, sexual, spiritual, financial, uh, social. So they where they isolate you and keep you away from people. All kinds of different abuses. So it could have to do with any of those. So this is where you would consider the obvious abuse. Then after that, they try to smooth things over. So this is where they're trying to convince you it didn't happen or it wasn't that bad. Or
hmm
maybe they might even apologize. They might admit that, okay, yeah, we had a problem. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They never really apologize for the right thing. They just maybe say I'm sorry just to shut you up. Or they blame you and they convince you that you did it. So you apologize and that way they don't take responsibility, but it's enough to shut you up. That's all they want. They try to smooth things over to shut you up. That's all it's about. So this is where they're just trying to shut you up. Okay, so then there's the honeymoon stage. Now this could be I just want to preface that this could be with a spouse or partner, it could be with a parent, it could be with a best friend, it could be with a boss. It doesn't have to be a partner. It could be anyone that you're in a close relationship with and this is their personality, so it's all the same no matter what type of relationship this is. So I just want to preface that. So there's the honeymoon stage. This is where things are great, possibly even amazing. And you don't believe yourself about the abuse. You start to kind of excuse it or forget it. It's behind you. Um, there may or may not be love bombing during this stage, during this time. And so this is where you basically you pretend that it didn't happen or you are convinced that it didn't. And then life is normal again. We go back to the beginning. Everything's just kind of chill. It's just life. Nothing's really going on. And then it starts again. Um, you start walking on eggshells again because you can feel that tension. Okay, I've been around this block before. I know I need to do something. So you start serving them and submitting to them and um uh going above and beyond for them and placating their every wish, serving them just anything to keep it from happening because you know it's coming. But nothing you do is going to make a difference. No matter what you do, this is the cycle and it's going to happen. But in your mind, you're doing whatever you're trying to push it off as long as you can and do and please them. So,
Yep.
um, it happens again. And here's the problem is that each time it actually escalates. It gets worse each time. And as time goes on, like, so at first, like it's bad, but it's not that bad. In hindsight. It's bad, but then it just gets worse and it builds and builds and builds. And so you're in complete shock because you don't understand. It doesn't make sense. And you're especially after this honeymoon phase, and you're like, I thought we were good. I thought we were past this. I thought everything was fine. And so once again, you're caught off guard. You're completely shook. And then you start questioning, okay, what did I do to make them so angry? What have I done? What have I done? You start questioning yourself. Well, obviously it must be me. I mean, I thought we were good, but obviously I did something wrong. So you turn against yourself. So let me know, type yes if this resonates with you. If you can think of an example of exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, they have to make themselves a hero or the long-suffering victim. Exactly. Um, so if you can think of an exact scenario of what I'm talking about, type yes, let me know. Um, so let's talk about what you really came here for tonight, okay? Healing. That's what we really came for. I just wanted to give you kind of a preface of this is what happens. This is the normal experience of being involved with someone who is a narcissist or at least at the very least a toxic person. Maybe they're not necessarily a narcissist, but this is the normal cycle of abuse and toxic relationships. Um, so I titled this Breaking the Curse because what happens during these types of relationships is we develop these coping mechanisms as a defense response to their behaviors. And in turn, we actually develop our own toxic habits and behaviors to try and counter what they're doing. But then what happens is when we leave that relationship or we're separated from it, that doesn't mean that these things just stay behind with the relationship. We bring them with us, and they end up coming with us to every other relationship, or even when we're by ourselves, they show up in different ways. And so they stay with you unless you learn to break the cycle. And that's what this is. This is a cycle of your own. So you have the relationship cycle, and then you start a new cycle with yourself. All right, so this is what I commonly see. I see emotional eating to avoid the negative feelings because you either weren't allowed to or you couldn't handle the feeling the negative emotions. It was too much just to deal with their emotions, let alone your own. So you start to stuff them in the cheesecake and you eat them. And Hannah knows what I'm talking about, the cheesecake, the cheeseburgers, and the chocolate. That's my thing. Those are my favorites. So, but you start to stuff them in the food and then you eat them so that you don't have to feel them. And this upsets you, so you get angry at yourself and it makes you feel ugly and fat and disgusting and all the things. So then you try to diet to fix eating the foods that make you feel bad because you regret it. So you try to diet. But the diet doesn't work because the food's not the problem. But you don't realize that in the moment. It's to you, it just feels like food. So you jump from diet to diet because the last one didn't work. So you try another one and then you try another one. And this keeps happening because you're not addressing the right problem. And so what you've done is you've traded one toxic relationship for another one, only this time it's with food. So you have this negative toxic relationship with food and with yourself. So if this resonates with anybody, type it in here. My hands would shake whenever he came home because I knew there'd be some kind of anger about something. Yes, exactly. You never know what you're walking into. Like you know that the time is, you know that like okay, it's 5:30. They're gonna be home any minute now, and you don't know what's gonna come through that door. You don't know what's gonna happen. But so a lot of times, like I said, so then we have the emotional eating and the dieting. Yo-yo, that's what we call yo-yo dieting. All right, so that's one thing. The other thing, there's three more things. So people pleasing and codependency. And this is where you need other people to be okay so that you can be okay. So what happens with this is we can't handle any kind of conflict and you have no boundaries. You say yes to everything. You're constantly apologizing for things. Um, and you don't want anyone mad at you and you put everyone else first and yourself last. And so let me see some hands if this resonates with you. Yeah. So you're doing this thing that you're constantly trying to kind of like it's like you're falling at everyone's feet And what happens is you get used and abused and trampled on and run over, and everybody and it's not just the at this point when you're a people pleaser, it's not just that relationship because this, like I said, this carries into every other relationship. You do this with everybody now because this is about you. It's not about the relationship anymore. This is about you turning against yourself and you lose your self-worth. You lose your identity, you lose your value, and that's why you're doing this because you're actually looking for validation and acceptance. And so it's actually, believe it or not, it's a form of perfectionism. And it took me a hard look in the mirror to accept that. When my therapist told me that, I was like, I'm not a perfectionist. Like, you should see my room. Like, I was thinking, I'm a messy person. I can't be a perfectionist. But it's not about that. It's about this person made you think that you had to be perfect, and so now you have to that's where you're at. That's where, things show up. You're trying to be perfect because that's what they made you think you had to be. Okay, so there's that. Then you have the self-loathing and self-sabotage. This is part of where the emotional eating and the people pleasing kind of connect here, okay? You've got this is where you resent yourself, you're angry with yourself, you don't like being alone because you don't like yourself, you have negative self-talk, you're very critical of yourself. You can't even look in the mirror because you don't like the other person. You don't like who you see in the mirror. So you have poor self-image, thinking you're dumb, thinking you're stupid. Um, I can't do anything right. So let me know if this is you. If this is you, let me know in the chat. Um, and then the last thing that I see also, there's other things, but these are the 4 big things that kind of all cycle together. They all connect to each other. And the last one is finding yourself in recurring toxic relationships. It's like you're a magnet for toxic and abusive people because it's like you have this big sign on your forehead that says, taking all narcs and assholes, free game, come and get it. It's like you're just, come on, this is me. I'm free game for all of them. And what happens is because you're used to an unhealthy relationship and somehow that's gotten ingrained in your brain, it's like you don't even know what a healthy relationship is anymore because that's what you're used to. Either either you grew up with it or you've already had a string for whatever reason you've had a string of these unhealthy relationships from one reason or another, and you can't identify, it doesn't feel natural or normal to be in a healthy relationship. So you accept the unhealthy ones. You don't know any different. And so yeah, so let me know if you resonate with this, if this makes sense with either any of y'all. So what we need to do is to get to the bottom of all this and understand why these things happen and take some actionable steps to break free from them. So who's ready to break some chains? We ready to break some chains? All right. Yes, let me see. Okay. All right. So y'all taking notes. You don't have to take notes. Okay. I, I'm trying to put together a bunch of stuff to put this out there so you can always have access to it. But all right. So the first thing we have to do is know why you want to break the curse. That is step one. Know why you want to do it. And so this is what we call what's your why. I don't know if you've ever been through any kind of program of like setting goals or doing things special. You might hear what's your why a lot. Well, same thing applies here. Anytime you're making any kind of change or doing something new, you're going to have to set up what's your why. Now here, let me explain it a little bit more. So, why do you need this? What's going to happen? What will happen if you don't break the cycles and move forward? So you have to think about these things. Think ahead. What will happen if you don't break the cycles and move forward? Where will your life be in 3 months if this continues? What about 6 months? What about a year? What about in 3 years? Where will your life be if you don't do anything? If you stay right where you're at right now and nothing changes, where are you going to be and what will your life look like in 3 months, 6 months, year, 3 years? And I want you to really think about that seriously. Really, really think about it. So why is this important to you now? That's the next question. Why now? Why is this something now you're ready to take care of? So by establishing this why, this is going to be basically setting the stage for motivation when things get tough, because they're going to. This is a change, and change is hard. Even when it's something that you want, change is hard because we have our habits. It's something new. It's uncomfortable because it's not what you're used to. So having your why and knowing it, writing it down and putting it somewhere that you can see all the time, and it's from your heart. This is really genuinely, this is why I need this. That's going to remind you when you get beat down, when you slip and do something you don't want to, you come back to it. You circle back around to it. So, what do you want? See, what are you experiencing right now with where you're at? And what do you want to be experiencing? And why? So that's your first step. All right. So the next step is to start noticing your triggers. All right. So this is two steps here. So you're going to think back to the time when you were involved in this relationship, or if you still are, you're going to think about things with the narcissist that triggered you and what those responses were. So, um, well, I'll give you an example in a second, but then also I want you to think about now when you're out, or things that are not that person, if it's a different person, but you're triggered, what are those things? So I'll give you an example. When someone would tell me that I didn't do something quite right, and I still kind of have this, so I really have to work on this one still, and it's been 6 years. Um, so when somebody would tell me I didn't do something quite right, or I missed the mark on something, maybe I didn't meet either my expectation or someone else's expectation, I would immediately fall apart and I would tear myself to pieces, and my self-talk, um, possibly even I would have negative self-talk with myself, and I might even say it out loud with that person, like to that person. So I'd be like, I'm sorry. I know I'm no good at this. I'm just a loser. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't ever do anything right. And things like that. So, and it could be as simple as like I put too many glasses on the top rack of the dishwasher. I mean, something stupid like that. But I didn't, it made it too heavy. It's a thing anyway. So, um, it could be something simple like that, or it could be something big. It could be something monumental. But either way, it's a trigger. And so that would trigger the negative self-talk. And if enough of these things happened in a short period of time, that's when I start emotional eating, or that's when I start really digging into the people pleasing. And those are kind of my responses that I would have. And so this is a cycle. All right, so how about if someone gets angry with you or starts yelling? That's kind of a really big one. So they start yelling. Um, this might send you crashing emotionally, and you engage in the negative self-talk, right? You may have a panic or an anxiety attack. You run to the freezer and get some ice cream, or make a pit stop at Krispy Kreme and eat a dozen donuts because you need something to make you feel better because you can't do it yourself. You don't know how to make yourself feel better. You need something else to lift you up. Maybe it's not food, maybe it's something else. Maybe that it's just the negative self-talk. It could be anything. You have your own responses. And so identifying what the triggers are and what those responses are is what you need to do. And then you need to decide, okay, this is what I experience, but this is what I want to experience. So instead of these triggers, or I'm sorry, instead of these responses, I want to respond this way instead. And if you don't know what to do, then that's fine. We can work on it. But knowing at least what that pattern looks like is that's going to be your next step. Is this making sense to anybody?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let's see if I missed anything. All right. So now you've got your foundation, You understand kind of what's going on and knowing what sets you off and kind of spins you into your cycles. All right, now we got to break free because we know why, we know what. Now we got to know how. So we need to set a positive mindset. And this can be really hard. This can be really hard, especially if you're used to being on a downward spiral. If you're a pessimistic person, which I was the biggest pessimist. Like the optimism made me sick. Like I wanted to puke when somebody was positive. Like it was that bad. But setting a positive mindset is essential because mindset is one of the most powerful tools at your disposal. All right, mindset can alter the entire trajectory of your entire life. And so this would be like, is the glass half empty or is it half full? It's the same thing either way you look at it, right? It's in the middle. But depending on which word you use determines whether you are giving a positive mindset or a negative mindset. Like I said, no matter what, there's half of the glass has water in it. But which way are you looking at it? So, um, how do you typically view things? Are you able to see the good in any situation, despite knowing that there is a negative side? And that's the big one. So that's kind of the trick here. So not denying that there's negative, just also knowing and acknowledging, hold on, just acknowledging the positive and putting more emphasis on that. So you know that both exist, but you're focusing on the positive. Okay, that's where your mind is. Um, so one way we do this is to actually reframe your thoughts. So for example, um, you might be thinking to yourself, I can't get past this pain. I can't move on. I'll never be okay. And you start ruminating. Okay. You're saying all these things. You feel pain. You're in a place of darkness. You're in a place of negativity. And these are the thoughts that are in your mind. And you're not even trying. This is just the way that your mind is coming up with stuff. So this is a negative thought, right? So how can we flip that? You're not denying where you're at. You're not denying how you're feeling. But how can we flip your experience to look at it in a different frame? Any ideas?
Mm.
All right, I'll help you out. I'll help you out. All right, so how about I'm feeling pain right now. I'm feeling a lot of pain right now, which is good because it means I care. The narcissist doesn't care. They don't care about other people. They don't care about other people's emotions, and I do. So feeling is good. Even if it's a painful feeling, it means that you care. It means that you have a heart. It means that you're a human, you're a decent human being, okay? So
Never thought of it that way.
exactly. So I'm feeling a lot of pain, which is good because it means I care. Now, I haven't been able to move on yet. Adding the word yet to your situation instantly transforms it to a positive mindset. So take any experience that you're in right now, anything that you're experiencing, or something that you're stuck on. Let's put it that way. Something that you're stuck on. You're experiencing guilt right now. Whether
Mhm.
or not that's appropriate guilt, we'll get to that later, but I can't shake this guilt yet.
Right. Okay.
See
Okay.
how
That
that
makes
see how that works? That instantly
yeah.
changes it because what that's saying is that you're going to. But
Yeah.
when you say I can't shake this guilt, you have a period at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say yet, that
Mm-hmm.
opens it up.
Right.
That lets you keep going. See how that works? So
Yeah.
that gives you a positive mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was okay. I'm not be able to move on yet, but I know I will, and I'm working towards that. You can also add that. It doesn't feel like I'll ever be okay, but I know I will be. So just changing the way that you're saying something, you're still saying the same thing, but the way that you're saying it changes the position of your mind. And here's why this is so important. So changing the language just a little bit, you're expressing the same concerns, but reframing it completely. And so this brings positive energy, but it's legit. It's a real thing. And so we are energy. Everything that is alive is made from energy. There's so much science about this, and it's actually coming out more and more in scientific journals and articles, especially when it comes to like medical healing and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just saying that when we shift our mind to positive energy, it has a higher vibration, which will eventually lift you out of the negative, lower vibration and improve everything. So I'm just saying that's one reason why this is so important. But then also, the next thing we have to do is address fear. So fear is false evidence appearing real. That's what it stands for, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. What does that make you think? Like, does that kind of trigger anything for you in your mind? If you think about things that you're afraid of, fear keeps us from doing most things that we want to, but we don't. A lot of time it's fear that's keeping us from doing it. And what happens is fear is actually an illusion and it's a liar. So most of what we're afraid of is actually completely irrational. Now, there are rational fears. There are fears that we have because of an experience that we had. That's a thing, okay? I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm saying most of our fears are irrational and they're illusions and they're from false evidence. So it's concepts that we've made up in our mind. And so think about, how can we be afraid of something that has not happened yet? It hasn't happened, so how can we be afraid of it? So this is what's called anticipatory anxiety, is being afraid of something that might happen.
Mm.
So this is the what ifs. I know you've said what if. We all have the what if. What if he comes back at me? What if I can't make it? What if he tells the whole world that it tells lies about me? What if he turns my family against me? What if he comes after me and tries to hurt me? What if I can't afford to go on my own? What if he takes everything from me? You could go on and on and on. What if, right? So then we have to learn to conquer and overcome this fear, because what it's done is it's held you back. All right. If you don't, you're not going to make it through the rest of the process of healing, because fear it's dark, it's huge, it's heavy, it's scary, and it turns a lot of people away.
Yeah. I think I'm afraid, even it's been 5 years and I'm afraid to date because I'm scared I'll pick another one.
Hmm.
I'm
What
like,
if I do?
what if I pick
Okay.
another
Okay,
narcissist? But
let's go with that.
hopefully I know the red flags now and I wouldn't, but
But what if you do? Let's keep going with it. What if you do? What happens if you do?
start dating a narcissist?
Hmm? What if you do?
Get the heck away.
So what's the problem? If you do, you'll recognize it and you'll move. Okay, that wasn't him. Keep moving,
Yeah.
right? So what
Yeah.
if you do? You might get caught up and not know that he was. But as soon as you've been through a ringer, you're gonna know the signs when it happens. Like, you
Yeah.
might not notice the subtle things. You might excuse the subtle things, but as soon as you recognize that that's what it is, you're going to get the hell out of there, because you've been through enough to know that's not what I want. And I'm not going through that again. Right.
Yeah. That's true.
So what
Yeah.
if you do? Move on.
You on, go away. Yep.
What
I
doesn't
agree
kill
with
you makes you stronger, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like life is short and, you shouldn't sabotage yourself.
No, you're absolutely right. Life is short. And that's why
Mhm.
we can't stop. That's why you can't let fear hold you back, because life is short. So you have to keep moving.
Yep.
Because if you let fear get in the way, you're never going to do anything. So I have this slogan. It's action is the reflection of a decision. And if you stay around long enough, you'll hear me say that over and over and over. Action is a reflection of a decision. So if you have decided that you are going to take your life back, if you have decided that you're not going to let someone else control you ever again, if you have decided that you're going to move on and you're going to keep going and you're going to have the best life ever, then you're going to take action no matter what that action is. You're going to take action to make it happen, even if it's scary. So, by taking action for the purpose of healing and growing and moving on, you cannot sabotage yourself, because your intention, your purpose is for your healing. So, if you hit all these points, if you know what to do, then you're going to keep yourself from sabotaging yourself. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so you're not going to make it through the process if you don't get past the fear. And that's because it takes a lot of strength and courage. It does. It's scary. It's hard. It takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage to break entirely free from the narcissistic abuser and to start an entirely new life, because that's essentially what you have to do. Would you
Mhm.
agree? It's basically a whole new life.
Yep.
Um, so
And the
fear,
peace, even when things are scary or hard, the peace is worth it.
exactly.
It's like, ah,
It's
yeah.
so that the fear, you said it, the fear and the difficulty is on a completely different planet. Like, I can't even, a completely different realm. Like, it's not even close to being the same as it was with the relationship. They're completely different. It's a different type of fear. It's a different type of difficulty, because you still have peace, because you know that that you're in control of what's happening. So you are in control of your fear. You have complete control over whether or not you're afraid of something. No one else can make you afraid of something. You get to choose whether or not you're afraid. So if you choose, I'm afraid, but I'm going to do it anyway, that's your choice. You get to
Yep.
choose. And so that's just it. So that's the next thing is, I want you to think of a fear that you have right now. Okay. Think about something that you are fearing in this process. What could you do if that fear wasn't in the way? Think about that. What could you do if that fear was not there and in the way? So, what do you have to do? You have to do it afraid, right? You have to do
Push
it
through.
afraid. Do it afraid. Bravery and courage doesn't mean that you're not afraid. Like, that's actually the definition of bravery and courage, is doing something despite being afraid of it. Right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean, or it means that you move forward even though you're afraid. And then when you get to the other side, you see that there was nothing to be afraid of, or at least it wasn't as bad as you made it in your head. So you might hit hiccups, you might hit bumps, you might hit challenges, but you will overcome them if you keep moving. You don't have to be afraid of those challenges and those bumps and those difficulties. You just have to figure a way. Just figure out how to get over them. You just, so everything is figure outable, right? You just have to figure out the puzzle. And then you make the next steps. That makes the next step even easier. And then the next, and then the next.
Hmm.
So the next thing I want you to think about is, how will it feel to not have this fear stopping you? How will it feel to not have this fear stopping you? Right? So how's it going to feel when that fear is not in the way? So this takes really projecting your mind past the fear. Okay, so think about that. I really, really want you to think about that because that is a really powerful thought when you put your mind into it, because that's going to help you get past the issue.
Yeah.
When we put our minds on the other side, even though we're not there, it actually tricks your brain. It tricks your brain to go ahead and get there. So when you think, okay, how's it going to feel to not have the fear stopping you? It it helps you to actually go ahead and not be afraid of it. Freedom lies on the other side of fear. All right, so moving on. After you face and overcome your fears, you need to then look inward and nurture your self-love. Now, this one is really hard for a lot of people. Because for a lot of reasons, but it's also critical and essential to your healing. Self-love it's going to nurture the changes that you're making, because without self-love, it's going to be very hard to stay motivated to push through. If you are not recognizing your self-worth, if you are not recognizing your love for yourself, then why bother? Like that's the mentality, right? Like why bother? Who are you doing it for? If you don't love yourself, like why even mess with it, right? It's going to be really, really hard to push through when things get tough because it's not going to be worth it. So this is going to include setting your boundaries, not letting people trample all over you, and learning to say no when you need to say no.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really hard one.
Yep.
This is having a positive self-image, positive self-talk, self-compassion, self-care, and checking in with yourself on your 6 dimensions of wellness. And checking in to see, assessing where things are at, to know if you need to put focus on any of them to bring them back into balance. That is a part of self-care, and really just tuning into yourself, because if you're focusing on your different dimensions of wellness, it's impossible to not be in tune with yourself. And to be in tune with yourself is to connect with yourself and to develop a relationship with yourself. So, this is going to help you become complete and whole and balanced. So, who's really struggling with accepting and loving yourself? So, what can happen is we can look in the mirror and just really not like the person that we're seeing. So, then you need to ask yourself, why is that? If we're struggling to have that healthy relationship with ourselves, why? What's there that's making it difficult? What is it that's making it difficult for us to have self-love and self-care and self-compassion? And so you need to start thinking, who am I? So that's where we're going to start with this self-love and self-care. Who am I? And really defining, I am a lover. I'm a compassionate person. I am someone that cares deeply about other people. Um, you know, I I bleed, I bleed orange for Clemson, But yeah, so really identifying your qualities, your personality, what makes you you. I I have a passion for helping other women. I have a passion for making sure that my family is taken care of. Whatever it is that makes you you, connecting with that and owning it, identifying it, calling it, writing it down, and appreciating those qualities and those characteristics about yourself. So then you got to think about, what does that mean for you? So start kind of identifying that. What would be different if you really appreciate who you are and everything that you are? What would be different if you did? And then why don't you? That's the next question. All right, so trying to move quick. All right, so then we need to move on to forgiving yourself and affirming yourself. And this may be something that you may not have even realized you needed to do. So forgiving yourself would mean not holding a grudge against yourself, not being upset with yourself for staying so long,
Mm-hmm.
for allowing the kids to be affected, for making excuses for the other person, forgiving yourself for doing that. Forgiving yourself for not knowing it was as bad as it was, not recognizing the signs.
Yeah.
Forgive yourself for not doing something sooner. Forgiving yourself for believing them. Forgiving yourself for loving them. And whether or not these things are valid is irrelevant. This is things that we do to ourselves. These are things that we say to ourselves. So we have
Yep.
to release them. So again, like I said, whether or not they're valid is irrelevant. So forgiving yourself for loving them, forgiving yourself for not being perfect, because these are things that we hold against ourselves. So a big part of people pleasing is trying to be perfect, like I mentioned a minute ago. And this is where okay, so I kind of already said something that I wrote down here about the perfection, and this is kind of how they convinced you that you needed to be perfect. This is where you live now, and so it's ingrained in your brain. So the whole, forgiving yourself for not being perfect, this is kind of what has become your reality. So this is where you need to release that shame and guilt, because like I said, we have to be able to forgive ourselves for whatever that experience is. We have to learn to let go of it. Because so whether or not you need, like I said, whether or not those feelings that you have are actually real, like whether or not you really were responsible, whether or not you really could have done something more, whether or not you did or didn't meet expectations, whether those are true or not is irrelevant. This is how you feel. This is your experience, as you're experiencing this guilt. And so in order to move on, you're going to have to learn to release that and move past it so that you can move on and you can heal from that experience, that negative experience. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does.
So let's go into this person was really likely really good at making you feel guilty, right? So sometimes it's hard to accept that you're not the one to blame. And that's kind of what it sounds like I'm hearing from you, is that it's really hard to accept that you are not somehow a part of the way the things happened. So the fact of the matter is that they're wrong for how they treated you. So he was wrong for how he treated you. He was wrong for not listening to you. He was wrong for hurting you, for saying things that he has said to you. These people, they are wrong for the way that they treat you. So when we're saying we should have, that means that we knew better.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously we didn't. Obviously we didn't. Should is not a safe place.
Yeah.
Because have they ever should on you? You know what I'm saying? Did that person ever say, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't feel that way. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. You shouldn't, you shouldn't.
Didn't feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You shouldn't feel that way was a big one for me. But Jennifer, do you recognize, have you ever
Oh
heard that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
If it doesn't feel good coming from them, why do we do it to ourselves? And the reason is because that's how we have that we've learned that. We place so when they do it to us, it's because they have expectations. We also have expectations and they're not fair. They're not reasonable. But we have a hard time accepting that. So we have to move past that. So they are the ones that created the unhealthy situation, not you.
Mhm.
You are not responsible for their behaviors and their actions and lack of action. They're the ones that are responsible. They pushed the limits. They used you and treated you like crap. You did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
If you reacted to them or lashed out at them, that's normal. You think about a dog that is cornered. What's a dog going to do when it's cornered in a threatening situation? What do?
Yep.
Yeah, bye. Yeah.
They
Yep.
bite. Yeah, they get aggressive. They bite. They lash out. When you're in these types of relationships, you are constantly in a fight or flight mode. That's what it's there for. But
Yeah.
it's as far as the dog is concerned. Um, but it's not designed to live there. That's designed for emergencies. It's there
Yeah.
for a reason. That's why we have it, but it's not designed to live there. So you lashing out, that's actually called reactive abuse. That's a tactic that they use so that they can draw a reaction out of you and then they can point the finger at you and call you the abusive one and you the crazy one.
Mhm.
They use it against you. That is a tactic that they
Yep.
all use. So forgiving yourself is a very active step, just like self-love. It's very active. It's not something that just happens. You have to be very intentional about self-love and forgiveness for yourself. Forgiving the other person, that'll come later. But first you have to deal with yourself first because you're the one that needs to heal. You got to heal yourself. So active releasing yourself from the guilt. You have to remind yourself that it was not your fault. You did the best you could with what you had, right?
Yeah.
Um, you're not supposed to have to be in those types of situations. That is not what a healthy relationship looks like. So you you did what you had to do with what you had. Now, how does all this work? Okay, so we know why it, kind of what the story looks like. We know how we reacted and how we wanted to be, or how we want to react or respond to the triggers. We need to establish self-love and forgiveness. Now what? So I offer to you the tool of mindfulness and meditation. So this is how we're going to put it into practice. Mindfulness works by allowing you to be fully present in each moment that you're experiencing. So, because if you're in this moment right now, it's impossible to be in the past or in the future. You cannot be in all three places at the same time. Multitasking is like when you have a bunch of different tabs open, but you only have one window open at a time. So, like, we trick ourselves to think that we're doing all these different things all the time, but it is literally scientifically impossible to do more than one process or task at a time in your brain. We think we're doing more than one, but we're really not. We're just bouncing between tabs. The same is the same thing for mindfulness and time. When we are right here, you cannot be worrying about the future or ruminating about the past. It's impossible. So, um, for example, all right, I want you to do this with me, okay? You ready? We're gonna do it.
Okay.
What time is it right now? You don't have to say it, just think about it, okay? I want you
Okay.
to notice. What time is it right now? Look at the clock. What day is it? Thursday. Where are you physically right this second? Think about it. Where are you right now this second? Are you in your room? Call it in your head. What are you sitting on? Notice what you're sitting on. Identify it. Call it what it is. Who are you listening to? Who's speaking right this second? I am. What sounds do you hear? Notice around you right now. What sounds do you hear? Recognize them, identify them. How hot or cold is it in your room, in your space? Notice the temperature on your skin. Okay. What do you feel on your skin, your clothes, the pressure from where you're sitting or laying right now, the pillow, the bed or the chair, whatever it is. Notice anything that you're feeling, blankets. Um, if you're near your dog, you're feeling the fur. The sensation, what sensations are you feeling in your body right this second? Right this second, right now. Notice it. What sensations do you feel in your body at this very moment? Now I want you to come back. What am I saying? Listen to every word as I say it. What am I saying? And what do you see on your screen? Look at your screen all around it. Now, if you followed me along with what we just did, you just practiced mindfulness. That's all it is.
That's easy.
It's as simple as that. You're observing your experience as it happens. The end. When we were doing that, if you were doing it right, it was impossible to be worrying about the future or ruminating about the past because you were only right here. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, mindfulness is the here and the now. Okay. We go throughout the day all the time mindlessly. How many times have you eaten a meal and not even noticed what you were eating? You just got to the end and you got up and walked away. Like eating was just a thing. Like you were just filling your body, but maybe you were having a conversation or focused on something else and you just got to the end of your meal and you got done. And nowhere in there were you paying attention to what you were eating. You were just eating. You were just inhaling it. How many times have you done that? How many times have you left your house or a origination point, gotten to your destination and have no recollection of your tribe there?
That has happened.
Yeah.
You have no memory of point A to point B because where were you? You were
Mhm.
somewhere else. You were not in the car with yourself.
Yeah.
That's experiencing mindlessness throughout the day. Being here, being right now, being with you and me and everyone else, this is real life. Real life is happening here. Real life isn't happening in the future. Real life isn't happening in the past. That's done and that hasn't happened yet. This is where life is. So if you are focusing on either one of those things and not here, you are completely missing your entire life. Jennifer, you said it, life is too short.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we in the past or in the future? Why are we not here? This is where we let things go. This is where we release. This is where when we are right here, we cannot be worried or upset or angry or concerned about anything because this is just it. This is just life. Here we are. So when you use mindfulness in the practice of meditation, you learn to actually retrain your brain by creating new neural pathways for your mind to take action when emergencies come up. So it's literally like a fire drill for your brain, is what meditation is. So meditation is as simple as how you're sitting comfortably right now. And I want you to do this with me. It's as simple as you're sitting comfortable and quietly right now. Now notice your breath as you breathe in through your nose slowly and deeply, and exhaling through your mouth. And then taking another deep breath in through your nose and feeling the air as it enters your body. And you're filling your lungs and expanding your belly, feeling the air leave your body in your exhale. Noticing the changes in your heart rate, the sensations in your body, and the emotions that you feel. Now, sitting quietly, I want you to close your eyes if you're comfortable with it. If you'd like, you can fix your gaze gently on a spot. Either one works. Relax the eyes. Relax your ears, the mouth, your cheeks, your forehead, your lips. Relaxing your shoulders and your neck, your torso, all the muscles in your arms and your hands, relaxing them. Your hips and your thighs, relax those muscles. Moving down to your shins and your feet and all the way into your toes. Noticing how each part of the body feels as you relax it. Feeling the tension release as you focus on each part. And slowly bringing your attention back to your breath. Breathing normally. And noticing any sound that you hear, any sensation, any smell, any temperature. And just noticing your senses and all the input that they bring. And if you have wandering thoughts while you do this, it's okay. All you do is you simply acknowledge that it was a thought. That's all it was. It was just a thought. And then you let it release like a puff of a cloud. It just dissipates. It just passes. A thought comes in and then it goes. You place no judgment. You place no concern. You place nothing on the thought. You just let it come and let it go. And all you're doing is simply existing in this moment. And you allow your mind to settle on your observation. And then you take one more long, deep breath through your nose and exhale long and slow exhale through your mouth. And then you do like a yawn. And then you just gently return. So this is how simple it is to practice mindfulness meditation.
Okay.
So the difference is with just mindfulness, you're just noticing where you're at. With meditation, you're doing an intentional process of your entire body. There's other meditations, but this one you're bringing your senses down. You're calming everything down. This is used when you are in a heightened situation, when you are triggered by something. When you practice what we just did, when you practice that regularly, you're training your brain to be present and calm at the same time. It's a new process that you're training your brain. It's just like exercise, just like going to the gym. It's the same thing. You're training your brain to be present and calm at the same time. So when you experience a trigger and you are getting upset, you are getting nervous, you're getting anxious, you're getting concerned, you want you start people pleasing, you start emotional eating, you start doing any of those things, negative talk, you have now trained your brain to be calm and present at the same time, and it becomes natural in place of the triggers or the responses to those old triggers that you had. And this becomes the new response, calm and present at the same time. This allows you to release the fear. This gives you a chance to release guilt, because what you're doing is, as the thoughts come in, you're allowing them to pass. So when you have guilt that comes in, that's a thought. That's a judgment. That is a judgment. You're training yourself not to judge your thoughts. So when a guilt comes in, oh, look at there. Okay, that's all it was. That's a thought. Okay. And it's gone. You allow yourself to disconnect from the thought. If it's important, then we do something with it. But in this time, this is a time for you to train yourself to release. And that's why this is so important. So this is just one of the many tools, different ways that we address breaking cycles and breaking the curse. And this is what I help with women with in the Freedom Project Academy. And we go much deeper into all of these things, plus some others that I don't have time to get into because we're done.